Language pedagogy is defined as the science of language education, and it is a discipline that focuses on all the theoretical questions linked to the teaching of a language, starting from either the mother language, a foreign language, ethnic language, or a classical language. The need to know a language began centuries and centuries ago, when Latin was considered the main language, since it was used in trade, education, religion, and in the administration of the country. Around the end of the 16th century, Latin was replaced by French, Italian, and English. The real interest in foreign languages began in the 19th century and increased gradually during the 20th century. One of the main reasons for learning languages is the increase of the means of information and communication that allow you to communicate every day from all over the world. Another key aspect of the evolution of the language is the worldwide growth of immigration and a globalization in the world of work, which has led to a standardization of the language in societies and in businesses. These reasons led to a number of different methods which were developed by the linguists of that century that worked on setting language teaching principles and approaches. Before analyzing the main methods, let us concentrate on brain structures involved in verbal communication, and then we analyze the different types of memory. The nervous system collects information from all over the body and then transmits it to the spinal cord and to the brain. Both the brain, which is enclosed in the brain case, and the spinal cord are made up of a nervous tissue formed by neurons, which are nerve cells that receive, exchange, and develop information. Each neuron has a cell body called soma, containing the nucleus and from which dendrites and axons extend. The transmission of the electrical pulses takes place through synapses that allows neurons to communicate with each other or with the other types of cells. Memory is our ability to encode, store, retain, remember and recall information or past experiences in the human brain. There are three types of memory: sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. Sensory memory is the ability to memorize and retain sensory information in a short-term period. Short-term memory refers to the information we are currently thinking of. It is also called working memory because it is where the thought process takes place and where information is processed mentally. Long-term memory includes the storage of information which is preserved over a long period of time. But what is a teaching method? A teaching method is a way of teaching a language which is based on systematic principles and procedures. It includes techniques for the teaching of basic skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. The silent way was a language teaching method introduced by Caleb Gattegno, who is known for the use of cholera sticks called cuisine rods. The name silent way underlines the fact that the teacher speaks very little during the lesson. Silence is considered to be the best vehicle for learning because it helps students to concentrate. Pedagogical materials to use for these methods are the sound color rectangle chart. Each color represents a phoneme of the language, enabling learners to recognize and distinguish the phonetics and prosody of the language. Word charts that display the structural vocabulary of the language, pronouns, number, season, and days, and the cuisine routes. Suggestopedia is a teaching method which was developed by the Bulgarian psychotherapist Lozanov. He said that students naturally set up psychological barriers to learning. According to his research, Lozanov developed a language learning method that focused on the suggestion of the limitations learners think they have. The environment in which language is learned should be relaxing in order to eliminate psychological barrier of the students. In fact, this method improves physical health and also benefits the personality and the motivation of students. Total physical response is a language learning method developed by James Ussher. This method is based on the coordination of speech and physical movement. In fact, in this method, the teacher gives direction to the students in the target language, and they have to respond using body movements. This method gives importance to the listening, that Ussher considers the means to learn a language. So this method is based on the use of physical movements in reaction to verbal input in order to reduce student inhibitions and lower their affective filter. The grammar translation method is one of the most traditional methods. Initially, it was widely used to teach dead languages, like Latin and Greek, which involved little or not spoken communication or listening comprehension. The language is learned through memorization of grammar rules and vocabulary. Students practice the language by doing translation exercises both from and into the target language. The content of the translation is not very important due to the fact that the attention is paid to the form of the sentences and to the grammar. So translation is the key to this methodology, as is reading and writing. The oral approach, also known as situational language teaching, is based on grammar and vocabulary control. Research on language learning and the importance of the ability to read have led to the notion of vocabulary control, which means that languages have a basic vocabulary of about 2000 words, most of which are used in written texts, so the mastery of these words is useful for reading skills and reading comprehension. New words and vocabulary are taught using examples and not by giving grammar explanation or descriptions. In fact, the aim of this method is not to learn through translation, but to learn through images that include objects, pictures, expression, and actions. Accuracy in pronunciation is one of the main goals of this approach. The development of a complex society has emphasized the need for new labor figures, which are constantly changing and subject to a constant reassessment. A central role in reevaluation and retraining is played by the knowledge of foreign languages, depending both on the multilingualism promoted by the European Union, but also on the need for a linguistic and cultural mediation, due to the migratory phenomena that in the recent years Europe and Italy in particular have experienced. In this context, the figure of the adult learner arises. New strategies and methodologies of learning foreign languages are created for students who have already been introduced in the world of work. At present, foreign languages are not only of interest to individuals, but they are also of interest to international institutions, among them the European Union. Knowing how to communicate in languages other than the mother tongue is important in order to develop human potential, both in the professional and in the social-cultural field.